Southwestern Ontario underwater in February. The Toronto Islands out of commission for much of last summer. Flooding events such as these have communities across the province bracing for the spring thaw. Are these just flukes or signs of a new normal? Joining us now on that, Blair Feltmate. He is head of the Intact Centre on Climate Adaptation at the University of Waterloo. And we're delighted you made the trip down the 401 to see us today. Thank you very much.
Happy to be here.
Let's just start with what the Intact Centre on Climate Adaptation actually is.
So the Intact Centre is housed within the Faculty of Environment at the University of Waterloo. And the name Intact comes from our founding organization was Intact Financial, the larger property and casualty insurance company. And basically our focus is on how do we take risk out of the system in Canada relative to climate change and extreme weather events. And disproportionately our focus is on addressing problems pertaining to flooding. How do we address flood risk in the country?
That sounds like an impossible task. How are you doing?
I think we're doing fairly well. I mean, there are actionable items that you can engage to get risk out of the system to make it such that communities don't flood out as much as they would otherwise by putting certain actions in place. And you can help individual homeowners not have a flooded basement.
And we're going to go through all those things over the course of our conversation. We're going to put some pictures up right now as we consider what has been the case in this province over the last year. Let's survey some of the damage. If you live across southern Ontario, we saw flooding in February, ice chunks washing ashore on Water Street in Cambridge. We saw parking lots underwater in London, Ontario. We got a shot of New Hamburg here, or at least what you can see of New Hamburg that isn't underwater. And I think most of us remember the Premier declaring a state of emergency in the city of Brantford, about an hour west of Hamilton, due to the flooding that they had there. We got a clip of, boy, how many people remember this? The Toronto Islands, which were shut down because of the water situation there last summer. All right, how do you want to explain these events, Blair?
Well, fundamentally, the driver behind them at the base is climate change. This is the manifestation of climate change. We're getting bigger storms today than we did in the past. And indeed, in southern Canada right now, we're getting about 18% more rain on an annual basis than occurred just over 100 years ago. And that's on average. So that means if somebody's getting less, somebody's getting more. So with more rain in the system, we're getting more flooding, but it's not the only factor that explains flooding. We also have a loss of wetlands throughout southern Ontario. About 74% of wetlands have been lost, which when they're there in their original state, they absorb water, hold it, and allow it to discharge over a longer period of time. By removing them, that contributes to flooding.
And those got removed. The wetlands disappeared. Why and how?
Well, they're paved over or they're turned into agricultural development, but they're taken out of their natural state. And then within and around cities, we have aging municipal infrastructure, aging houses. We have less permeability within cities, giving water less places to go to drain naturally. So when you take climate change on top of densification and growth, all of these things in combination are giving us the flooding that we're seeing.
Are you able to put a percentage on what you think you can attribute to climate change versus those other things?
Not categorically, but it's a big percent. It's not an immaterial number.
I see. Okay. Yeah. Let's talk money. Speaking of material numbers here, we don't know the full cost, obviously, of the damage that have been talked about on the program so far, but here's what the Insurance Bureau of Canada suspects is going on. Thanks, Sheldon. Here's this graphic. Look at this. Do you remember the granddaddy of Mull 5 years ago? Almost 5 years ago now in Toronto? Almost $1 billion in flood damage. And then you go to 2014 in Toronto and Southern Ontario, they did $78 million worth of water damage. 2015 in Essex, London, Toronto, Kingston, $29 million. And then 2010, Toronto and Hamilton in this region, $29 million again. That's in the province of Ontario. What's going on nationally as well?
Well, these numbers reflect the national trend very well. If you look at from about 1983 up to about 2008, the insurance industry as a whole, in terms of catastrophic loss claims in the country, could count on paying out between about $200 and $500 million per year for catastrophic events. And a catastrophic event in insurance terms is any event, a flood, fire, wind, hail damage that costs more than $25 million.
Look at that graph now.
Yeah.
Doesn't it tell a story?
That's exactly. So if you look at that graph up to 2008, if you look at those green bars, you can see we're somewhere in the zone of insurable claims payouts of about $200 to $500 million per year. But from 2009 onward, for 8 out of the last 9 years, we've gone up over $1 billion per year on annual payouts. And the factor that's the elephant in the room that explains most of the upward bend in this curve is too much water in the wrong place, flooding. Flooding is the #1 cost to Canada in terms of climate change.
Do I infer from these numbers that the insurance business itself cannot continue to sustain 100% increases year over year for as far as the eye can see?
That's right. And what we're actually seeing now, quite frankly, is that the premiums you would pay for your house, it's linked to the risk of, in this case, basement flooding, what we're talking about. Premiums can only go up so high until a homeowner simply can't afford them.
And they'll just take their chances and not buy insurance at that point?
Well, quite frankly, what's happening right now from Halifax to Victoria, we have a growing uninsurable housing market in Canada, and where people simply cannot get insurance coverage for any type of water damage in basement because the risk has been so high, or so through repeated claims.
Companies won't write a claim for you.
That's right, exactly.
Okay. So there are a growing number of people in this country who have uninsurable homes.
That's right.
Well, that sounds problematic, doesn't it?
It's highly problematic because the average cost of a flooded basement in Canada right now is $43,000. So if you have a $43,000 basement flood with no insurance coverage, what do? And a lot of people simply do not have $43,000 sitting around as disposable income to solve the problem. And remember, generally speaking, this is sewer water in your basement. This is really nasty stuff. So if you flood on a Monday, you have to solve the problem by Wednesday of that week, or the house is uninhabitable.
Oh, my goodness. You have heard homeowners say in the past, the insurance companies make this too complicated. You think you're covered for something, but then you discover once the damage has happened, you're actually not covered for it after all, or you're not covered enough, considering what damage has been done. Do insurance companies need to do a better job of meeting people's expectations and understandings of what's going on?
Yes, and they know that. For the last 2 or 3 years, I've been spending a lot of time with the insurers in the country focusing on how do we make the messaging simpler to homeowners to get them to understand what are you covered for, what are you not covered for. And what any homeowner should do is call up their insurance broker and find out, before a disaster occurs, find out what am I covered for, what am I not covered for, what caveats should I be aware of, do I need more coverage, etc. So step #1, if you own a home, find out right now what you're covered for.
That just seems common sense. Don't people do that anyway?
No, most people wait. It's sort of a management by disaster scenario. You wait till you have the disaster and then you start to look into the problem.
I see. Might be a bit late by that point, eh? Okay, so you work with government and industry to get people sort of up to scratch and equipped on various events. What's the most important thing that you think you're working on at the moment to improve this situation?
There's a couple of things. One is we're working very aggressively right now nationally to develop new flood risk maps for Canada. Right now, flood risk maps, a delineation of where the water is going to go when the big storms hit, they're out of date. So we need to produce up-to-date floodplain maps, or flood risk maps, that take climate change into account with other factors of densification in cities, so that we can say very clearly, these are the areas where you're at highest risk of incurring flooding. But then the question is, once you know you're at risk, what do you do about it? So we're spending a lot of time right now with home inspectors and the colleges that train home inspectors. Right now, believe it or not, home inspectors receive virtually zero training on basement flood risk assessment. So we're developing a new course right now that home inspectors will take that will be up and running in September of this year, that will give them expertise in this area, such that when a house goes through the buy-sell cycle, and 90% of the time there's a home inspection, now we can have a much more in-depth analysis of potential flood vulnerability for that house and the corrective measures that need to be taken at that time to make it such that the probability of flooding is lower. And then, without going into all the details, we're developing new codes and standards for Canada right now, for example, that focus on how do we build new residential communities going forward with fundamental features and characteristics in place that will make it such that when the big storms hit going forward, the probability of flooding in those communities is much, much lower. And step #1 starts with don't build on floodplains.
Right. Okay. A bunch of things I want to follow up on there, so let's start to go through them. What's the simplest and most cost-effective thing people watching us right now can do to protect themselves from flooded basements?
They should go around their home and do a couple of things. #1, the downspout from the east trough, that if it disappears into the ground, into the weeping tile system, cut that off, put an elbow on it and go get an extension and direct the water 3 meters away from the home and not into your neighbor's yard.
Common sense again.
Plastic covers over window wells that make it such that window wells at ground level, plastic covers over those, so when the big storms hit, the water doesn't fill the window well and subsequently flow into the basement. Make sure the windows at grade level are water sealed, watertight, so even if water does get up to them, they can't flow into the basement. If you have a sub pump in your basement, make sure that you have battery backup supply for your sub pump, because the time you need the sub pump is when the big storms are hitting. And that's often when the electricity goes out, so it doesn't do you any good at the time you need it. And then you can have the city come in and do an examination. Do you need a backwater valve, a check valve, and where the drain is in the basement, where the water would go through the little drain in the basement and out if the dishwasher overflowed. Sometimes when really big storms hit, water can back up through that system into your basement and flood it out. It may be that you need a check valve put in that place to make it such that water can flow out, but not in. And if people do just these basic fundamentals around their house, it can be the difference, which can usually be done by the average homeowner on a Saturday and maybe a Sunday morning for next to no money, no great expertise required. That can be the difference between having a $50,000 basement flood versus not.
My hunch is no one tells people this when they buy a house. From the moment you buy you get your mortgage lined up to the moment you take occupancy of the house, no one's actually told you any of those very important educational things along the way. Should we be changing the way mortgages are let or homes are taken over or something in order to help make that happen?
Yeah, absolutely, categorically. As a matter of fact, I'm deeply involved in this whole file with the insurers, with the banks, with the mortgage market, with the real estate agents.
What should they do?
Well, ultimately, what we're looking at is once we have the home inspectors properly trained and accredited in this area, which is imminent, it'll start this fall. What I would like to see ultimately is that, when you go to buy a house and you look at the listing for the house, it has the number of bedrooms and this, that, and all the other characteristics for the house. Ultimately, what we're looking at is getting a little box on there that may say flood ready, yes or no. And it will allow you as a homeowner, if you see a yes there, you say, you know what, this home has gone through a determination, a review by a properly accredited person to say that the fundamental features are in place that make it such that the probability of flooding in this basement is very, very low. You can't say non-existent. Versus right now, you have no direction.
We're not there yet, though. So what obligation is there on the part of, let's say, for example, the real estate agent selling the place to inform the prospective buyer that there is a floodplain here, or this place is somewhat susceptible to flooding if you get a big rainfall, that kind of thing?
Yeah, it's very minimal right now. The question comes up when you list a house. You'll sit at your kitchen table with the real estate agent. You'll go through a whole bunch of little boxes about features about your house. One of the questions will be, have you ever had flooding in the basement? And the person will say no, very often, whether they have or not. And it's interesting. Morality goes right out the window when money's on the table and you're about to list your house. A lot of people don't want to advertise the fact that, oh, yes, sure, we have flooding all the time here. So, no, we need more rigor in the system in reference to this whole issue.
Now, let me pick up on something you said earlier, which is about how much innovation can take place in the actual construction of new homes, for example. Is there new material out there that, for lack of a better word, could spongify, could soak up big rainfalls in a way that the current materials, like bricks, for example, just don't do?
Yeah, the answer is yes. And for example, one feature alone is now we have permeable pavement, permeable concrete. We can create surfacing that would make it such that when water hits it, it's not hitting an impermeable surface, which is typically the case now, that water can actually absorb and filter through the surfacing and recharge the groundwater system or discharge slowly downstream. That's just one aspect of that which you can bring to people's driveways, to municipal parking lots, to parking lots in and around shopping malls, etc. But no, we can make it such that when we build houses going forward, for example, we don't have reverse slope driveways. We don't have the driveway leaning down towards the house. We have it going away from the house, direct water away. When we build new homes going forward, we make sure they are not in floodplains. That's why we need to update the floodplain map. So it is amazing at the time you're building how easy it is to put features in place that will not add any significant cost to the system, that will make it such that, though, the probability of a problem down the road is much, much lower than if you don't make this effort.
Now, how tough do you want to get on this kind of thing? Like, do you want to pass regulations saying that anybody who builds a future house, you can't have a sloped driveway going in, or you must use these new materials that'll spongify better?
Well, right now where we're at, we're actually developing new standards right now to guide, we have 3 standards coming out right now. One is a new standard on basement flood protection for homeowners or home assessors that they could use to figure out, you know, what do we do to make it such that we don't get a flooded basement at the level of the house or the property. Number two, we have a new standard coming out in about a year from now on new residential community design. These are the fundamental features that should go into new residential community design to make it such that we don't have excessive flooding when the big storms hit. And then the third standard coming out, it will focus on existing communities. What is it that we can do within existing communities to lower flood risk profile? How do we use berms, diversion channels, holding ponds, bioswales, cisterns? How can they be deployed within and around cities cost effectively to lower the flood risk profile of the city? So these three standards are coming out now through a collective effort of National Research Council, Standards Council of Canada, Canadian Standards Association, and working very closely with the Intact Centre.
Green spaces in cities, how important to stopping flooding?
Extremely important. Matter of fact, a little while ago, we did a research study that looked at wetlands, if you'll use that term for a green space, and said wetlands, when left in their natural state, what role do they play, if any, to attenuate the probability of flooding occurring in the future? And what we found is by leaving wetlands natural, when big storms hit going forward, in rural areas, we reduce insurable costs by about 29%. In urban areas, we reduce insurable costs or claims by 38%. So by leaving natural infrastructure natural, we reduce insurable claims by between about 30 to 40%.
In our last few minutes here, let's just focus on some of the more direct climate change angles on this story. In Ontario, we have a cap-and-trade system. Some provinces have a carbon tax instead. It's all designed to deal with climate change. How do those different solutions factor into the flooding debate we're having here?
Well, in Ontario, not too much on the cap and trade side of the equation, because every dollar from it is designated legislatively that it has to go towards green energy projects, initiatives, which is a good thing to do to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, and hopefully as a result of that we're getting less climate change, so that's a smart thing to do. But independent of that, though, I can say, and I work very, very closely with the government here in Ontario, the Minister of Environment and others, they are nonetheless putting efforts into supporting adaptation programs to get risk out of the system. So it may not be, the monies for these efforts and the support for these efforts, it may not be coming from the cap and trade system, but it's coming nonetheless through government support, combined with a fair bit of input from the insurance industry, as you might guess, for logical reasons, that's also supporting these efforts. So I think what's happened basically in the country on the climate file is over the period of, say, the last 10, 15 years, up to 2 or 3 years ago, almost all this discussion on climate change was on mitigating greenhouse gas emissions, which is a good thing to do. But adaptation to climate change, putting the measures in place that we're talking about, was sort of the distant cousin that nobody talked about. But with all the flooding that's going on now, as highlighted at the beginning of the show, I would say politicians federally, provincially, municipally, they've really got religion on the file that we need to address the risk that's on the ground now, but also the flooding that's going to come in the future. Canada has not seen flooding yet relative to that which is coming.
Now, you say we're getting religion, but people sometimes convert to other religions, and if you and I were to have this conversation a year from now, it's entirely possible that the majority of the provincial governments in this country could be led by governments that don't like don't like the carbon tax and don't like cap and trade either, for that matter. And of course, we're going to have a big debate in Ontario probably in the next couple of months about that as well, because of course, the PCs are running to get rid of cap and trade altogether. What do you think that would mean for climate change adaptation in Ontario if cap and trade were to be scrapped?
I don't think it'll mean too much, quite frankly, because independent of mitigating greenhouse gas emissions, so that file will change for sure. But on the adaptation side of the equation, whether you're a Liberal, Conservative, or NDP, or Green Party, or anybody else for that matter, it is in the best interest of the politician, and it's in the best interest of the electorate to not have flooding basements, to not have flooding communities. So that reality remains, period. And we have to remember that every dollar spent on adaptation, the benefits of that spending are realized locally. They don't accrue into the global commons, which is kind of what happens on the mitigating greenhouse gas end of the equation, and you're kind of hoping that everybody else is also reducing their greenhouse gas emissions. But on adaptation, every dollar spent locally, the benefits are realized locally. And number two, on adaptation is the gift that keeps on giving. In other words, if you put measures in place to mitigate risk, every time that stressor would come to the system in the future and you're not having flooding due to the next big storm, you realize a benefit. Then a little while later, another storm comes along, but based on those initial measures you put in place, again, the benefits accrue, the benefits accrue. It's actually hard to calculate the return on investment for adaptation because every time a big event or a stressor happens, you realize that much more benefit in the system. So based on the fact that adaptation efforts, the benefits are local, and it's the gift that keeps on giving, I think you're going to see any political party support adaptation going forward.
You're adapting, but you're not preventing. That's different, isn't it?
That's quite, you are correct.
So
that's right.
That doesn't, I mean, adapting is one thing, but ideally you'd like to prevent in the first place, wouldn't you?
Absolutely. So what we want to do, and I'm not saying that we should be doing that, we should still be working as vigorously and as aggressively as possible to mitigate greenhouse gas emissions, to slow down the rate of change in the system and the stress that we see manifest. But so on that part of the equation, the dynamics would change a lot, and certainly in this province, that's for sure.
Blair, let's finish up on this. If I gave you a wish list, what are the top 3 things on your wish list in terms of policy change?
Well, right now, number 1, and I'm not so sure it's policy, but directive, would be we need to produce up-to-date flood risk maps, and we need them now. We do not have the luxury of time. Like, let's get on with it fast. Number 2, we need to get the home inspectors trained on this subject rapidly, which we're doing, and get them to deploy that expertise so that when homes go through the buy-sell cycle, or you, as someone in your community, you've looked around and said, you know, I haven't had flooding, but my neighbor has, and that guy has, and someone at my church has. I'm going to get someone in here to actually assess my property before it floods to make sure I'm okay. For a couple $100, it's a couple $100 well spent. So we need to get these people up, trained, and deployed fairly rapidly. And then thirdly, in reference to the codes we're developing, new codes and standards on protection at the level of the individual house, new residential community design, and new standards for existing communities. We need to solidify those codes and deploy them and get them to be embraced by provincial and municipal governments.
It's a shame you don't have any passion about this issue.
It's important.
I agree, and that's why we had you here tonight. Blair Feltmate, Impact Center on Climate Adaptation, University of Waterloo. Thanks, Blair.
Thank you very much.
The Agenda with Steve Paikin is brought to you by the Chartered Professional Accountants of Ontario, helping businesses stay on the right side of change with strategic thinking, insightful decisions, and business leadership. Are you on the right side of change? Ask an Ontario CPA.